Hi guys, welcome to Talk and Smile. I really hope you guys are doing quite well and are at home during this lockdown. Today, the video which we have for you discusses Hamlet's 7 soliloquies. Now, as you guys know, that soliloquy is an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud when by oneself or regardless of any hearers, especially by the character in a play. Now, Hamlet is regarded as the longest play by William Shakespeare, and it has 7 soliloquies. In all these soliloquies, Hamlet shares his inner feelings, thoughts, and plans for the future. These soliloquies are the pivotal pillars of the drama and are still considered to be one of the best works written by Shakespeare. Okay, so let's look at the first soliloquy. Now, the first soliloquy comes in Act 1, Scene 2, between lines 129 and 159. The soliloquy starts with, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thou and resolve itself into a dew," and ends with, "It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue." Hamlet refers to the world as an unweeded garden in this soliloquy, in which rank and gross things grow in abundance. He laments the fact that he cannot commit suicide, saying that self slaughter is not an option because it is a forbidden thing, it is forbidden by God. In the first two lines of the soliloquy, he wishes that his physical self might cease to exist on its own without requiring him to commit a mortal sin. Though saddened by his father's death, the larger cause of Prince Hamlet's misery is Queen Gertrude's marriage to his uncle. She announces the new marriage or the new alliance barely a month after the father's death, that is, Hamlet's biological father's death. Hamlet mourns that even a beast would have mourned a little longer than what his mother did. As it is her brother in law that she marries, he considers this marriage to be an incestuous affair. This soliloquy shows Hamlet's deep affections for the late King Hamlet, painting the dead king as a loving husband and a respected father. He scorns his mother but accuses her of weakness rather than malice with the line, "Frailty, thy name is woman?" He concludes the soliloquy by voicing his frustration that he must keep his objections to himself. Okay, so the second soliloquy comes in Act 1, Scene 5, lines 92 to 112. The soliloquy starts with, "O all you host of heaven, O earth, what else? And shall I couple hell, or fee, hold my heart?" And ends with, "That one may smile and be a villain. At least I am sure it may be so in Denmark." Now, having heard the ghost's testimony, that is, his father's ghost's testimony, Hamlet becomes distressed and impassioned. He is horrified by the behavior of Claudius and Gertrude and is convinced that he must avenge his father's murder. This speech is duplicative, fragmented, and confused. To reveal his state of shock, he uses rhetorical questions, short phrases, dashes, and exclamations, and jumps from the subject to subject. God is invoked thrice throughout the soliloquy, and the binary of head and heart is mentioned again. Okay, so the third soliloquy comes in Act 2, Scene 2, between lines 546 and 603. The soliloquy starts with, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! It is not monstrous that this player here," and ends with, "More relative than this, the play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." Hamlet's mood shifts from self loathing to a determination of subdue passion and follow reason, applying this to the testing of the ghost and his uncle with the play. The first part of the speech mirrors the style of the first player describing Pyrrhus, with its short phrasing, incomplete lines, melodramatic diction, and irregular meter. This is a highly rhetorical speech full of lists and insults, also with repetitions of vocabulary, especially the word villain that suggests he is challenging his rage and unpacking his heart with words in this long soliloquy, railing impotently against himself as well as Claudius. He then settles into the gentler and more regular rhythm of the thought rather than emotion. Now let's come to the fourth soliloquy. The fourth soliloquy actually comes in Act 3, Scene 1, lines 56 to 89. Now, a lot of you have heard the phrase to be or not to be, and this is actually the essence of the play Hamlet. And these lines come in the fourth soliloquy. The fourth soliloquy starts with to be or not to be, that is the question, and ends with or take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. The speech uses the general we and us and makes no reference to Hamlet's personal situations or dilemma. Although traditionally played as a soliloquy, technically it's not because we have Ophelia who is present there, also having Claudius and Polonius. At the time, there was the standard question whether it's better to live unhappily or not at all. As always, Hamlet moves from a particular to general, and he asks why humans put up with their burdens and pains when they have a mean to escape with a bare bodkin. Now, Hamlet also questions whether it is better to act or not to act, as suggested through the beginning lines of the soliloquy. Uh, he actually questions whether to act or be passive like Horatio, or to meet events head on, even if by taking up arms this will lead to one's own death, and since they are not to be overcome. Although humans can choose whether to die or not, they have no control over what dreams may come, and this though deters him from embracing death at this stage. Strangely, the ghost does not seem to count in Hamlet's mind as a traveler who returns, given that Hamlet has already concluded that he cannot commit suicide because it's against self slaughter, and there's no reason to think he has changed his mind about such a fundamental moral and philosophical imperative. Now, this soliloquy actually has very slower pace than the previous soliloquies and a higher frequency of adjectives, metaphors, rhythmical repetitions, and regular iambics. Hamlet's melancholy and doubt show through in the use of stresses on disease, burdens, pain, and weapons, and they generally jaundiced world view. Now, let's come to the fifth soliloquy. The fifth soliloquy actually comes under Act 3, Scene 2, between lines 395 and 406. It starts with it's now the very witching time of night when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out. And the soliloquy ends with how in my words some ever she be shent, to give them seals never my soul consent. Now, Hamlet feels ready to proceed against the guilty Claudius. He is using stereotypical avenger language. He is aping the previous speaker's mode, as so often trying to motivate himself to become a stage villain by identifying with Lucianus, the nephew of the king. This is the least convincing of the soliloquies because of the crudity of the cliched utterance, and one suspect it is actually leftover of revenge plays works. I mean, it might be a version of revenge play. Now, the emphasis at the end, however, is on avoiding violence and showing concern for all his own and his mother's souls. His great fear is of being unnatural, behaving as a monster like Claudius. Basically, he doesn't want to be as bad as Claudius. This soliloquy creates tension for the audience who are unsure of the fact that how in the first private meeting with his mother will turn out and how they will speak to each other. He mentions his heart and soul again here. Okay, so let's go to the sixth soliloquy. Now, the sixth soliloquy comes in Act 3, Scene 3, line 73 and 96. It starts with, "Now might I do it, but now he's praying. And now I'll do it, and so he goes to heaven? As hell, where to it goes, my mother stays. This physique but prolongs thy sickly days." Okay, so in Act 3, Scene 3, we observe the sexuality of Hamlet. Now, Hamlet is actually preparing himself to kill Claudius, but as soon as he goes to kill Claudius, he sees that Claudius is praying. Now, then at that time, it was believed that a person who dies while he's praying goes to heaven. Now, Hamlet actually thinks that Claudius has killed his father. He had killed his father uh, at a time when he had no chance to go to heaven. I mean, his father was not must not have been praying when he was actually killed, which means that the father's soul has suffered, and he wants Claudius's soul to suffer the same way, and that's why he refrains from killing him. He wants actually to kill Claudius in certain way that he'll have to pay for the sins and the misdeeds which he has done, and all the crimes should be justified. Okay, so now let's look into the last soliloquy in the play Hamlet, which is the seventh one, which comes in Act 4, Scene 4, between lines 32 and 66. The lines of the soliloquies are, "How on occasions do inform against me and splur my dull revenge? What is a man?" And ends with, "To hide the slain, or from this time forth my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." Now, the information given to Hamlet by the captain stimulates his thoughts of revenge and makes him scold himself for his inaction. He realizes that thousands of soldiers are ready to die for a piece of worthless land, but he, Hamlet, who is equipped with the excellent motive to take revenge for his father's death, is still unable to do anything about it. The Soilaki sheds light on the fact that he had a natural deficiency that always thwarts his purpose. His tendency is to generalize and universalize and to think instead of act. One that can be seen in his own soliloquies is that, okay, sorry विशाल, इसको काटना है, ठीक है? The soliloquy sheds से काटना है. Okay, so this soliloquy sheds light on the fact that he has a natural deficiency that always thwarts his purpose. He tells himself that every person has a purpose and they should fulfill it. A man is no better than a beast if he is satisfied only with the sleeping and feeding himself. That is, with the act of sleeping and feeding. God gave reason to human beings so that they may make use of it. He says that a man is justified in taking actions if his sense of honor demands. Hamlet remembers his powerful motive that a father killed, a mother stained. These are the images that torture him, and these make him actually seek revenge. This is a turning point for Hamlet where he stops mulling over the past, licking his wounds, and fantasizing about the revenge, and instead starts acting on his thoughts. Okay, guys, with this, we come to the end of the video. I hope you liked the video. Do comment if you want us to explain any other texts. I wouldn't say that the text should be in English. You can actually suggest us any other text from any other language, and we'll try our level best to provide you with the explanations. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel and help us grow. Thank you so much.